So this is Wrestle DX Alpha. That's Kev. I'm Kristian here. We're back for another episode for your listening pleasure. So, dude, where are we? This is the week of SummerSlam. SummerSlam it's come. It was huge. It was big. NXT was there. Raw, SmackDown. What happened, man? So, why is wrestling important this week in the grand scheme of things?
Well, if there's nothing else, WWE didn't drop the ball with booking. Dear God, they did well. They actually had a great takeover. SummerSlam didn't suck. Raw made sense. SmackDown's got some heated stuff on it. 205 Live, as usual, has got some spectacular cruiserweight stuff going on. Have I missed it? Oh, NXT as well, which was the dark matches from TakeOver. A decent women's match, and Pete Dunne defending the UK title against Zach Gibson.
So talking of that, also you have this weekend, actually tonight in Birmingham, is NXT UK. They've got 3 shows over here. The World of Sport this past week as well. Ring of Honor's been on. There's been so much wrestling and action going on this past week. It's almost too much to call. But dude, let's just stick with what everyone knows and what everyone's talking about. NXT. Dude, what happened, man? Why was NXT so good?
Oh, as usual, as you'd expect, NXT TakeOver had 5 matches of just wonderful action.
Because the one thing, the big difference between NXT and say the main show is, there's not the fluff about it. It's just like guys and girls going about having a wrestling match for the sake of having a wrestling match. Kind of in the way that the Attitude Era was. Because when you look at NXT, it kind of has that Attitude Era vibe about it. There's kind of like a rabid fan base crowd. Everyone's just into every single match. Very different to the main roster. And I think if you haven't seen an NXT takeover, how you a wrestling fan have missed out so far. But the crowd was just absolutely on fire for the entire show.
Yeah, they didn't drop any. They was into everything. I mean, if you think the EC3 versus Velveteen Dream was the stinker of the night, which was not a stinker, that's saying something.
Yeah, because that was like, according to Meltzer, that was a 3.5-star match. I mean, even that's better than most Raw and SmackDowns generally.
Yeah, there's some really great spots in there. Poor EC3 didn't exactly escape there without injury. He took a bit of a cut over the right eye.
Yeah,
and ended the match with a concussion.
Okay, Velveteen's Dream's finishing move, right? So I actually tweeted Velveteen and who else did I tag in that post? And I says, when are we going to stop calling it the Cartwheel Death Valley Driver and call it like the Velvet Hammer or something? Give it an actual name.
They did. What was it? The Dream Driver?
Yeah, they tried that a couple of times. It still was like, we're not quite sure. It was like Death Valley Driver, but Dream Valley Driver. It seemed really awkward to put that move over.
To be honest, I think they should just call it the Dream Over because it makes sense, and he says it all the time.
Yeah, that works as well.
Hey, what do I know?
Yeah, what do we do? What do we know? But dude, so the match of the night actually for me, besides the main event, which was awesome, was Ricochet and Cole.
Do you know, I disagree.
Oh, yeah?
Not that either of those matches weren't spectacular. I thought the tag team match was spectacular.
So who was in that bout?
Who was in that? That was the Undisputed Era's Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong against Mustache Mountain's Trent Seven and Tyler Bate.
Oh, yeah. Very consistent
and that
match.
Kicked off the night.
Yeah, it was a consistent, strong, booked match. Every moment seemed to be quite precise. Everyone kind of knew what they were doing. It was believable. It was strong. Everyone's performance you believed, and the actual finish. It was at the center of the ring doing his double unhook powerbomb, which is not the easiest things to do for anyone, let alone the smallest guy in the match to the biggest guy in the match.
Yeah, and do you know, I actually expected Bobby Fish to have had some sort of interference in this. I know he's out injured, but I thought at least he'd come down to the ringside and distract Seven or Bate.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that they teased the towel gimmick again as well.
Yeah, I did. That was because they obviously did that in the UK. For those who haven't followed that, they threw the towel in to stop the match, which is something that you and I have spoken in the past, how that is rarely used, and here we are, we see it twice in a month.
Yeah, well, they used it once and then they teased it again. But I think they just had to. It made sense to do that.
Yeah. What else? because like in that Ricochet Adam Cole match, and I guess the one move that stands out, of course, is the moonsault off the rope where Adam Cole hits his super kick into his throat while he's upside down, coming off that moonsault. That spot was just how do you don't rehearse something like that? That just happens.
You know, here's the really funny thing is that was actually the second time that was performed that night.
Really?
The first time, which obviously no one knew about because they didn't show it until NXT, Pete Dunne tried a moonsault, and Zach Gibson kicked him in the face while he was upside down in his moonsault.
Right, I didn't know that. So I haven't got NXT this week, so yeah.
It's a shame as well because, as you'd expect, Gibson, Dunne. Oh, wonderful, wonderful UK wrestling, and of course Pete Dunne's got to destroy someone's fingers.
It's surprising that he never seems to make the main cards of being NXT, but I guess at the live shows, yes, he's generally performing on a regular basis, but in terms of television time, he's the UK champion, yet rarely featured.
It's because I think he's still under... he's not under a full-time contract.
Here's your belt.
Time in NXT, but then he disappears back over to the UK.
Yeah, he does some stuff in ICW, doing some stuff in Progress.
Yeah.
No, British strong style wrestling is so good. So good.
Yeah, and like the way the WWE's trying to like grab that as well and bring that in.
Yeah.
Because it's been so successful. I mean, Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne for the UK title last year at Brooklyn. That was one of the best matches of the year.
Yeah, without a doubt, yeah. And then they did that a couple of times as well, didn't they? TV time. And then of course you had like Ciampa and Gargano with kind of the personal match, which I still feel is really WWE kind of like latching on to what Kenny Omega and Okada have done with a succession of matches that appear to be one-upping each other every time. But you know what, I'm absolutely fine with it because it's great every time.
It's true. Don't forget though, last takeover it should have been the last man standing match, but they scrapped it because they had Nakamura versus Styles in a last man standing match the night after.
Yeah. I kind of think they really should have changed the match anyway, because it kind of feels like, well, it should be something different.
Going to, weren't they? It was supposed to be Aleister Black in this, as a triple threat, but now they're treating that as a whodunit.
Yeah,
who wiped out Tyler Black, not Tyler Black, Aleister Black.
So with that, do you think they're going to go with someone like Cassius Ohno, or bring in like another guy who's a surprise?
I don't know. If you'd have seen NXT this past week, it was ridiculous. According to the video footage that they showed, everybody was outside, everyone was driving off in cars and running around and taking pictures and standing off in the distance. I mean, there was even making a point that Nikki Cross was in the distance staring over.
Really? That's interesting points, because she's a talented wrestler who doesn't seem to find herself in a position of any value these days at the moment. She's just there.
Yeah, they kind of do that with the women at the minute. I mean, it's if you're not in the title picture, you're just about hanging around, maybe have a match.
Yeah.
Which is a bit un-NXT-ish.
Yeah, on NXT, normally you're given somebody to run against, and then something comes from that. I don't think NXT has the women right now. Is that why, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, when they've got the Mae Young Classic going on, there's plenty of women about. It's what they're going to do with it. It's like when they had the Cruiserweight Classic a few years back. We've got all these extra guys, let's get them on NXT. There was a match between Buddy Murphy versus Kota Ibushi on NXT during the Cruiserweight Classic.
Yeah.
There was TJP versus Shinsuke Nakamura, which, by the way, was epic. If you haven't seen that match, please go back, watch that.
So then, fast forward now out of the greatness that was TakeOver into SummerSlam. And SummerSlam, for a lot of people, was going to be a 6-hour or 7-hour stuck in the seat at the show, watching what potentially is WWE's biggest show outside of WrestleMania. I didn't think there was much hype going into it, in the same way that most shows normally go. There's a massive rocket ship of what we're going to do promotional-wise. I thought the SummerSlam was kind of missing the ball on some things. I don't know why it felt the same way for you.
Some of the matches felt really important. Some felt very thrown together last minute, like on the pre-show, you had Almas and Vega versus Rusev and Lana, which was just chucked on the pre-show, and
Well, you think something like that
B
actually
Team
might have some
versus
value as
Revival.
well.
Sorry?
You think a match like that actually would have some value, wouldn't you? I mean, Rusev is the most over heel ever as a face, and you got Almas just coming off his great match with AJ.
Well, both of them came off a great match with AJ.
Yeah, actually, yeah,
I mean,
both.
Rusev literally last month was main evented.
Here you are on the pre-show.
He was challenging Styles for the WWE title. This month he's in a mixed tag team match on pre-show.
Yeah, yeah. So what was there on the pay-per-view? You had with Gulak Alexander on the pre-show as well for Cruiserweight title.
It was disappointing. They shouldn't even call it the Cruiserweight title anymore. It should be the pre-show title, because I can't even remember the last time the Cruiserweight title was actually on a main card. I think it was the Royal Rumble, maybe the last year. I think it was.
Yeah, how disappointing is that? You got a major title belt just sat languishing at the side. When you think of it, like the UFC, every title belt actually has, you are the best of your weight division, your weight class, and here you are, you're stuck on the pre-show. Wouldn't happen.
It's the oddest thing. I mean, the Cruiserweight title, it's got its own show with its own roster, and yet, I mean, I think, and don't get me wrong, I think Nakamura and Jeff Hardy are two great big stars, but Nakamura's been just the guy for the match, while Jeff Hardy's had this rivalry with Randy Orton. I don't understand how the US champion is the side piece in a rivalry between two other guys.
Yeah. When does that ever happen?
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
And for me, Nakamura versus Jeff Hardy should be a big match. They are two very weird, charismatic, off-the-wall, over characters. And it's just not... It doesn't feel like an exciting rivalry because it's got nothing to do with Nakamura.
And that's really weird to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Nakamura, the guy they literally gone hand over fist to bring in, just have an average match. Well, average position, shall we say.
It's kind of average, and then also on the side note, like I said, he has nothing to do with the rivalry he is in.
That's just bizarre, isn't it?
It's just odd, and that match should have been on the pre-show if the Cruiserweight should have not been on there.
Yeah. So you had like the B Team and Revival, they had a match for the Raw tag titles.
Yep, and of course, as usual, the B Team stumble into a victory.
Yeah. Main card was Rollins.
Should be. Just a second. I mean, the Revival, they are literally the most old school and best tag team, I'd say, on Raw. SmackDown's got some damn good tag teams with The Bar, New Day, the Usos, if anybody remembers who they are, as they've seemed to have vanished.
Yeah, have great matches then.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget as well, at SummerSlam last year in the pre-show, they had the Usos versus New Day.
They did, yeah.
They was on the pre-show, and they went, put us on the pre-show, will you? Well, we'll sort that out. And they had possibly the best match of the night.
Yeah. So I was trying to think what else happened. There was Ziggler, the IC title with Rollins.
Yeah, Rollins and Ziggler, IC title. And you had Ambrose and McIntyre at ringside as well. And it was as you'd expect, it was a great match.
It's the one I think about Dolph Ziggler. I think he's a great charismatic guy, but I can't help mentally but think that he kind of reminds me of Brian Pillman.
Yeah, he's got that look about him. He definitely has that old school look with the wild big hair.
Yeah.
He's just a very talented guy, but thing I can't get away from is the fact that WWE's damaged him.
Yeah, he was the guy who was always the put over guy for everyone else who came in. They
give him a string of wins, and then they just beat him with anybody that's got any kind of name value.
Yeah.
For a guy that talented, it shouldn't be that case.
No, I think also he might be a guy who, if he was to leave WWE, actually his value would skyrocket if he was to come back later on down the line. But I digress.
Well, it's worked for other guys, hasn't it?
Yeah, it sure has.
Drew McIntyre and Jinder Mahal.
Yeah.
Those two disappeared, came back, huge stars.
Yeah.
And as for Cody Rhodes, if there's ever a poster child for someone that can make it outside of the WWE,
yeah, he's the man. He is absolutely the man. So I was looking at the show. So you had Braun Strowman then versus Owens in a squash match.
it was disgusting. Why? Why did Owens have to be beaten in 4 moves? You got a super kick in that Strowman just went, oh.
Yeah, pushed off.
And then just, mind you, that choke slam Owens took on the rampway looked brutal. Absolutely brutal. It was an old school bump.
Yeah, classic style.
Really, this is a guy that was a Universal Champion at one point. In fact, for the last few years, up until this run, really, he's never gone more than a month or so without a belt around his waist.
And here we are, destroyed in, like you said, 3 moves. But does that make Strowman even stronger as a character, or does that show that Kevin Owens can't compete with someone like that?
It doesn't. I don't think it does anything for anyone. I mean, if Strowman had gone out there and Owens had got a few moves in and made it at least competitive, it wouldn't hurt Strowman at all. It just made Owens look a joke.
Yeah, because they're trying to put Strowman over in this mega power character who's undefeatable. Is that really to bring someone up against him down the line? Because I guess it's not going to be Owens. Who else sits on the roster who actually might be able to challenge someone like that?
Do you know what they did wrong with Strowman?
What's this?
This is how I feel. What they did was, a few months back, for a good chunk of last year, they had Strowman versus Reigns, and they thought, we'll build Strowman up, and then you can job to Reigns. And something happened. The fans like Strowman. The fans want to see Strowman. Strowman's become an attraction in himself. He's still a little green, but the motherfucker's learning.
Yeah, that's right. So the one thing that really did surprise me is the Finn Balor becoming the demon for the show.
Yeah, they demoned him up. They put a little bit of body paint on him, and all of a sudden he's a raging super squashing machine. Corbin had no chance. Although I'll tell you one thing, Corbin sold the crap out of it.
Yeah. I think the demon character actually is really interesting because it's not who he normally is. It's like he has a second persona to call upon. It's very, very, very Japanese when they call upon their persona, their spirit character who takes over and does the match for them. It's like calling for a power up in a video game or something.
Yeah, I like it, but I wish he did the same thing that Cody Rhodes did. When Cody Rhodes was just Cody Rhodes in the WWE, he had his moves. But when he became Stardust, he changed his moves. The only move he kept was the Crossroads.
Yeah.
And even they changed the name of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
he wrestled different, he looked different, he behaved differently. But that's why Cody Rhodes is making the big bucks outside the WWE.
The big bucks is understatement. Nakamura, Jeff Hardy then, US title. I think we just kind of spoke about that.
Like I said, it weren't a bad match. It was a match. And it played second fiddle to Randy Orton just being there. I mean, at the end of the match, Jeff got beat. He's laying there. Randy Orton, music hits. He comes down, rubs his hands, looks at him, then leaves.
Doesn't help anyone.
What the fuck was that about?
That's a 4-minute intro. Gets down the ring. No.
It wasn't even a full intro. Like, music hit, he walked down, rubbed his hands, looked at him, left.
But you know, he's got like 100k for that, right?
Yeah, probably. Earning that paycheck.
Oh, yeah. So, Alexa Bliss.
Another big squash. I mean, I can see why they call the Summerslam the event of the summer, because it tastes like orange, because there was lots of squash.
Because I was thinking Alexa Bliss going into this, she has a chance. I believe that she was a strong style heel. She was going to be cheeky, be kind of Harley Quinn, fight against Ronda. But no, the match was over far too quick. Just a squash match, like you said.
It was definitely a squash match. But Bliss gets it. Bliss reminds me of The Miz. She can play a chicken shit heel.
Yeah.
She will put up roadblocks. She will put other people in the way. And she will use the undercard characters to protect her so she can run off.
That's the way to do it. It kind of keeps you relevant as well.
Yeah, typical heel. And she'll beg off and she'll like back away and beg for mercy and the rest on it. And first chance she gets, she'll blast you with a weapon or use some cheap victory or pull the rope or just anything she can to escape with the belt.
And then he, of course, had the match where everyone knew was going to happen. Although for a lot of people, they kind of guessed it. Even the result was going to happen between Reigns and Lesnar. Of course, Lesnar, obviously, back to UFC. I still wondered whether Lesnar might still go over in this match. But
yeah, same here. But they had to drop it this time. I mean, everyone thought it was going to drop it the Greatest Royal Rumble. Everyone thought it was going to drop it at WrestleMania. There's only so many times you can just keep teasing the loss.
Yeah, I wonder whether he was going to go into business for himself like he did last time.
Yeah.
I'm not dropping the belt because I don't have to. Okay.
Speaking of which, we're just looking back over the card. We also missed New Day going over the Bludgeon Brothers. That was a DQ finish. But if you wasn't aware, during the match, Eric Rowan tore his bicep, catching, I think, one of the New Day diving over the top rope in their tag team match. So Eric Rowan just went berserk with a couple of hammers and beat everybody up, all three members of the New Day.
So it was a impromptu finish.
Yeah, it was definitely that. Although they did follow it up on SmackDown with a very good no disqualification tag team match, which could only end one way. The Bludgeon Brothers losing their belts. They had to, because Rowan's injured.
It's interesting, actually, that guys who perhaps know each other really well can call that spot and go and make it look like a real, but actually make it look like it's part of the show. And then that shows to the professionals and those guys are, as where, accidents do happen, and not in the best of ways. And it's a bit like, oh shit, fuck, how do we play this now? And they're waiting for like a call from the ref or a call from the guy in the back or someone at ringside to try and tell them what to do. As they took the ball with it and actually ended it in a way that made sense and to continue on down the line.
It made sense. I mean, in that particular moment, Roman didn't know he tore his bicep. He could have just strained it. So just call for the audible, get the DQ win. The DQ loss. That way they retain the tag titles. So they can still continue the rivalry depending on what's going to happen.
Yeah. But like you said, it was he caught him as he dove out the ring. I mean, when you got guys like 250 pound diving out the ring as well, it's surprising that injuries don't happen more often, particularly in the catches when you see guys jumping off the top rope and moonsaults where there doesn't look like there's any stopping the velocity. They're just going so fast. You go, how do you even catch something like that? Or how do you absorb something that's for a guy 200+ pounds flying over the top rope with gravity propelling them as well? Sometimes you're thinking, fucking hell.
Well, obviously, you just do what the Undertaker did. Shawn Michaels, just sidestep him, pat his belly as he goes over.
Yeah. So I guess we got there's Raw and SmackDown, I guess, to go over. But what news has come up this past week? Because I was thinking, and I've read about Hulk Hogan talking about, teasing about NWO again.
Yeah, it's strange. There was also an independent show where X-Pac pulled out a NWO T-shirt of inducting a new member. I can't remember the name of the fellow right now. I apologise for that. But some independent show, and it was ever so odd because you've got like these really aging NWO members coming out with a T-shirt and some very hot chick, by the way, if you haven't seen the video. And Eric Bischoff came out as well.
Really?
God damn. To answer the question, who ate all the pies? I think we know now.
Has Eric Bischoff been packing away?
Oh, yeah.
It's interesting. Does that mean the NWO is... Who does it sit under in terms of a name? Does WCW own... Oh, sorry. Does WE own that as such because it sits technically within their contract stuff? Or does Hogan have control of that?
Well, I was to understand it was Nash. I was to understand back from the WCW days, Nash had his fingers in the pie when the merchandise came in. I'm not quite sure how much Hall and Hogan have in there.
Well, even if that's... I mean, out of all the other things that could happen in the wrestling world, potentially, Hogan has the biggest sway to be or create something new, right? Whether that be Micro Championship Wrestling we saw a few years ago, whether that be, going on an indie show, or actually to start his own promotion. Hogan probably is the only biggest name who might be able to do something like that.
You say that though, but how did TNA work out?
Well, yeah. I don't think
that had some brilliant minds backstage. Eric Bischoff was there as well.
Yeah, but that was it. I think there was lots of people not getting on with each other too well, and the wrong people going over, storyline wise. Or there's a well, you've heard Jim Cornette talk about what happened with Dixie Carter and Vince Russo and stuff, and
oh yes, we've all heard. Mr. Cornette's comments, especially with Dixon.
Yeah. So if Hogan was not to go to WWE, which was teased as going to come back, and then it didn't seem to work out, the old comments and stuff from the other guys in the ring, potentially might just start his own promotion. And
I just can't see it. I really don't. I think Hogan knows that he hasn't got the financial backing or even the minds really to start his own promotion. I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
If it didn't work with TNA,
TNA was really tight when he came in, of course.
I don't care what anyone says. If Hogan's there, Hogan's got sway. And if you've pulled Hogan in, you're going to listen to what Hogan says because, well, he's
Hulk Hogan.
The most famous professional wrestler in the world.
Yeah, but he certainly has money. He's obviously he just took Gorka to court and got 150 million or something recently.
And how much of that went on alimony?
Yeah, got to pay off the ex-wife. So yeah, Hogan's big announcement, 27th of October. Now, my bet is he's actually going to launch some kind of promotion. I don't know how that would fare because I'm not sure what guys would be available even to do a show. But maybe it's just a one-off event, a bit like All In, being a one-off supercard.
Yeah, the wrestling business is a crazy place right now. I mean, no one's going to overtake the WWE.
No.
If at close, the next one now worldwide, it has to be New Japan.
Yeah.
But they thrive on doing their own thing.
Yeah, they don't seem to. I don't know. I guess New Japan's kind of success is that it does its own thing, like you say there, and it really doesn't waver from its format. Its single matches, tag matches are always a secondary position. Triple threats simply don't happen. Four ways don't happen at all, really.
Well, that's not true. The Wrestle Kingdom they tend to have triple threats and four ways on them. I do remember, if it wasn't this year, it was definitely last year, the junior weight was a four-way.
Oh, no, you're right, because that's where Will Ospreay won, wasn't it?
That's right, yes.
That was good.
It was very good.
But so Wrestle Kingdom 13. So that's round the corner. Wrestle Kingdom.
As 4 to 5 months away from.
In terms of how New Japan book things, I mean, obviously the G1, their main guy, obviously one who came out of that, going up against the champion Kenny Omega for Wrestle Kingdom. Like I say, it's 4 months away. For January. 4 months away. No, that's not right.
No, it's 4 months. It's about 4 months in a week.
Yeah. And obviously, in Japan, you've got the tag climax coming, which is like the G1 for tag matches. That happens. There's the Destruction Tour. I'm not sure what the Super Show they've got coming up. I'm sure there's still one more.
And you say that New Japan don't really sway from their thing, but they are. They're running US shows.
Yeah, the Strong Style Evolved shows, yeah. And Strong Style UK shows as well. They run 2 over here.
And do not forget, they've teamed up with Ring of Honor for Madison Square Garden's WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah, the Supercard. The G1 Supercard. That's going to be... I thought it's WrestleMania weekend. Everyone's in town. There were something Jay said to me yesterday was there was a lot of criticism online that they've run it just because it's WrestleMania weekend and everyone's flying in for the G1. And it turns out actually a majority of people actually going to the show are actually local as opposed to flying in. 60% of the ticket sales are local within the New York area, as opposed to where WWE. That's a bit like it's not the case at all. There's many is flying.
Oh yeah, WrestleMania is international.
Yeah. So I guess for a lot of people, it's like we've got to go. It's the G1, the Supercard. It's WrestleMania weekend. We've got to go if we live here. If we're a wrestling fan.
Or if you're a wrestling fan and you're in New York, at WrestleMania weekend, it's the ultimate Christmas.
Yeah, if you're a wrestling fan.
Ring of Honor, New Japan, and WWE all in the same city.
Yeah, in buildings that are opposite each other.
You can't go anywhere in that city more than 10 feet without tripping over a wrestler.
It's true. Well, then you got the Hammerstein Ballroom down the road. You got the ECW Arena down the road.
God knows what else is running that weekend. Dear God.
Yeah, you know there'll be indie companies who are picking up buildings that are nearby and just running shows there just because there's wrestling fans in town.
Oh yeah, people will just be selling T-shirts on street corners.
Yeah, it's weird actually. That when I went to WWE show in Sheffield, there was like the guy selling the dodgy T-shirts on the tram line. Going, oh, get one of these, and it's like T-shirts actually look better than the ones I actually saw in the venue itself, but with like a ticket price that was like a third the size.
Yeah. Yeah, I bought some of those T-shirts myself in the past as well. Just that sometimes when you take them home, wear them a little bit and wash them, they're a size smaller.
Fruit of the Loom T-shirts, you know.
Yeah.
Man, so what else we got coming up? So let's just talk. Say, so I guess that kind of covers what we got coming up as a Evolution. I guess is the next big.
Just one more thing before we go on. The one thing. Oh, actually, we missed two very big important things from SummerSlam.
Okay,
and that was Miz versus Bryan. The fact that the Miz went over using some underhanded tactics, as we'd expect, because that ain't over. That ain't over by a long shot.
It's a long-standing story, isn't it? So.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. It's good storytelling. This is what I mean. SummerSlam had some fantastic storytelling, and Becky Lynch turned heel when Charlotte won the SmackDown title.
Glad she needs to be. She needs to be a heel.
Yes, she does. And you know what else? I can't believe I haven't even mentioned this. The match of the night: AJ Styles, Samoa Joe.
It's like TNA all over again.
I know, just AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, WWE title.
Yeah, and so we're talking 10 years on of experience. These guys have had having matchups with each other. I'm kind of glad the WWE hasn't brought this earlier, because right now both guys are on top of their game. You know, you've got the cheeky heel who's angry, who's violent, and you got AJ Styles being the ultimate face.
Oh, and I don't know if you've seen it or not, but the match ended on a DQ when AJ Styles went batshit with a chair and just went after Joe, just beat him with a chair. It was a great match anyway.
No, that's good.
It was a great match anyway.
No, it's a good ending actually, because it makes you go, well, what's going to come next? How are they going to top this? And I'm assuming they're going to go towards a Hell in a Cell. We're going to go towards a TLC match or some kind of big, heavy hitting match.
Oh yeah, and this is something I wanted to step back for into SummerSlam, because SmackDown in particular has some excellent blood feuds going up into the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. I mean, Miz versus Bryan, their history now is what, 10 years?
Yeah, so
8 to 10 years, something like that. And there is some spectacular storyline telling in that. I mean, the fact that the Miz has been stealing Bryan's moves while he was out for 3 years.
Yeah, he took on his abilities, took on his moves. He used to be to take on part of his persona, technically trying to steal part of his audience. So now you got obviously Bryan on the chasing face again.
Oh, fantastic! And then this whole thing with AJ Styles and Samoa Joe. Joe's making it more and more personal with every time he appears talking about AJ's family.
So it feels weird that Christopher Daniels is not in that mix, but you know.
Yeah. Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton as well. I think that's on for Hell in a Cell. I mean, Randy Orton's been dishing out some beatings to Jeff Hardy, and this week on SmackDown, Jeff Hardy actually got his own back and dished out a beating to Randy Orton himself.
Oh, good, because like, you don't want a guy who technically is a marquee character to be always beaten down. He has to have the comeback.
Oh, and he keeps doing that thing where Randy Orton keeps putting his finger through Jeff Hardy's ear hole thing and just pulling his ear. All that is nasty.
Good storytelling. Simple storytelling. Good. So again, I'm looking down our little our show notes here, and I'm looking at what's next really. Well, there's a few other interesting things that happened this week. Obviously, Raw, it was their go-home show. SmackDown, I guess, is running the ball. So when is it going to be that SmackDown hits the 3 hours? Is that when it moves to Fox in first week of September?
I would assume it's going to be round about October time because they've also got their Raw 1000th episode on the 14th of October. So I'd assume it'd be round about there. They're treating that like a big deal.
So I guess what you're going to have there is, you know, maybe some classic characters coming in, whether it be Stone Cold or The Rock or whatever, or some kind of big pop for some of the legends that have been created.
Well, for the SmackDown 1000, what they've already decided to announce is AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe for the WWE title, Daniel Bryan versus The Miz again, Jeff Hardy versus Orton, and also confirmed for the show is Nakamura, Camilla, the Bludgeon Brothers, but I'm not quite sure that's going to pan out now with Eric's. And The Undertaker has been added as well.
No, it's the Rock show, right? SmackDown.
Yes. Always was.
So is it likely that The Rock is going to turn up?
As likely as how predictable the weather is. If The Rock's schedule permits it, I wouldn't be surprised if The Rock turns up.
Hits a people's elbow kind of thing and a rock bottom and leaves the building and cuts a big promo about how he's back for good and he's not going anywhere. And
then the director shouts cut and off he goes.
That reminds me, so you got Paige's movie. Has that been finished? Has that got a release date soon?
I'm not really sure. I think that might be into next year.
Because I saw a trailer for that a while back.
Yeah, they're trying to
time.
promote it, but I guess they're trying to make sure that they try and get it out there around about a time when it's not going to be up against anything too major.
So I guess any movie that has The Rock in generally does quite well. Heck, Rampage even did well.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not going to want to release it when he's just had his skyscraper film out.
No.
And I don't think it's a good idea to put it up against anything Marvel. You sure as hell don't want to be putting it up against Avengers next year.
No, so I guess that it'll be a period of time where they're just going to throw it out there somewhere in the middle of that. So I kind of wonder if The Rock comes in, you know, Paige does something, and that's when they go, oh, well, the movie's going to come out with a date or something.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if they held it off until WrestleMania time.
Yeah, I can see why they'd do that.
And also, as well, actually going back to it, if The Rock would appear with the whole Paige move there, Paige is the general manager of SmackDown.
Yeah, exactly. So it would seem to make sense that if she was to, I don't know, make the call and The Rock comes in storyline wise.
Yes, he may lay the smack of down. Probably on Samoa Joe and be super bestie mates with AJ Styles, which should also be a holy shit moment to have The Rock and AJ Styles in the same ring.
You know what? That is a kind of holy shit moment, isn't it? If that was to actually happen.
Yeah. That'd also be very surreal.
Yeah, because you think about the times legends. So you have like the Hogan era, the Rock era, you know, the Cena era. I guess what might be in the Roman Reigns era at the moment as the main huge face guy. Then you've got AJ comes in. Is it AJ's era if it's not Cena's?
Well, don't forget, SmackDown is the house that AJ Styles built.
Yeah, where did that even come from?
Styles saying it repeatedly.
Yeah, so it's believing it's true.
It's
So,
one
so
of them things they try to, sometimes if you say it enough, it'll get over.
you see, is there not a feud in words there in and of itself?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, The Rock show with the SmackDown.
Yeah.
And of course, that being on the show that AJ Styles built.
Yeah, there's a rivalry in and of itself for WrestleMania. There we are.
And then Samoa Joe or some other B-list heel will come down, run off at the mouth, and they'll probably both turn on that person and give them a verbal beating, and then a couple of finishers.
Because something like the Rock's family, right, is literally, I don't know, they appear to be connected to everyone from all of Samoa. Where does Joe fit in there? Are Joe and the Rock related in some way, like every other Samoan tends to be?
Well, apparently Samoa Joe is not. He's the evil one. He's the disgraceful one. If you caught Great Balls of Fire last year in the build-up to Joe versus Lesnar, Paul Heyman put out quite a few unpleasant comments about Joe's heritage, as he's the disgraced Samoan that no one wants anything to do with.
You see, Heyman is just like the fucking legend, mate. He's like the maker of just great storytelling.
Yeah. And the great thing is, it appears that Mr. Heyman will be sticking around now that Lesnar's UFC in.
So on that very note then, so who would Heyman actually team up with now? Who is he going to slip with?
Well, there's been rumours of all sorts. There was a rumour at one point that he'd align himself with Roman Reigns or even with Ronda Rousey.
I don't think Roman needs it, although he probably needs a voice of some kind.
As long as we don't hear Suffering Succotash again, I think we'll be fine.
Maybe some guy who's just come up from NXT. Someone who has like champion vote in their future, maybe. As the guy who goes over, maybe.
Maybe, but I mean, they did it a few years ago, didn't they? Where they tried to put Heyman with a few people to give him a rub, and it didn't work for Curtis Axel, Ryback, or Cesaro.
Didn't he go with Heidenreich as well a few years back? The guy who came in looked like a Russian.
Russian, looked more like a Nazi.
Yeah.
That goose-steppy thing he was doing, and his weird poetry and attempting to rape Michael Cole in the toilet. Sorry, Michael. Cringe TV.
Yeah. I'm sure they put Heyman with him for a bit. I think the last thing he ever had going through, he had a feud with The Undertaker and then disappeared.
Yes, which actually did spill over to a live event over in Nottingham, which I was there for. Undertaker, I don't think was actually billed to be there, but there he was, being all big and dark and scary.
Nice. It's great actually when that happens, and there actually is some continuity, only if you go to the live events.
Yeah, I mean, it also sometimes when you watch the live events, it reminds me of South Park when they did this Civil War thing.
Yeah.
And all the people from the two sides are like fighting, and you've got them in headlocks, going ha, smiling and pretending to hit each other in the face, and you kind of get that feeling in a lot of house shows.
But I can remember, so like in Impact, right? It was like on TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever it's called these days. They used to have this show called Explosion, which was kind of like the secondary show. It was almost like a made-for-TV kind of scaled-down version of Impact, where they'd have a few of their own random matches. You would find that would happen, that it would kind of be self-knowing through the fourth wall that it was not important, and because of that, it was the commentators would kind of have free reign to say whatever they liked in a different way, and the wrestlers would do the same. They would sort of like break character, but actually that would be intentionally within the character universe itself, and that was pretty funny to watch. Seeing like, because I think Raven was kind of like at that time was the he became the GM just because, well, I'll just sit around in the corner of he'd sit in the corner of the ring while two guys had a match. Would literally would commentate the match in the corner.
Do you know, my favourite commentary came from Jerry Lawler when he commentated his own match.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
he insulted the crap out of him, beat him up. They're insulting him, and the other guy like get a punch in. And then he'd get really upset and beat the crap out of him some more. And then insult his mum.
But it's like there's quirky stuff like that. What actually it's fun because it so doesn't take itself too serious. Which I guess perhaps is the benefit of a house show, where you can kind of see guys trying something new. I guess if you I listen to Joe Rogan quite a lot of stand-up comedians, and they all talk about that you have your major shows, but actually on the shows that are in between your major shows, actually you're trying to work on new stuff. So there's an expectation that not everything is right, or you're trying new things, you're adding in a new bit or a new twist, just to make it right for when it does go out on a main show. And when Nakamura came in to fight Ziggler, they'd already been fighting on house shows. Yeah, it was billed his first match. I guess they were trying to find out what actually would work, and then they ran with it on a main show.
Yeah, they've done that for a long time, and also certain guys that want to wrestle each other and don't have the program to do. I mean, did you know Chris Jericho fought Shinsuke Nakamura on a house show?
No, I didn't know.
Absolute facts. In fact, if you have a look around on YouTube, you might be able to find a fan video of it.
A mobile video in the crowd.
It is, but at least you do actually have video proof that Nakamura, Chris Jericho, one-on-one, WWE ring.
It did happen.
Happened. Fact.
But that kind of leads it to itself. Is like the random stuff can happen for the sheer sake of just happening. So when wrestling went 3D, so when polygons replaced sprites, what happened? We spoke last time about Power Move Pro Wrestling on top of our 16-bit era. So I guess in many ways Power Move perhaps was the first 3D wrestling game that actually was a wrestling environment. So what about the mainstream kind of wrestling games? What happened with the first 3D games that came through the market? What came first?
Well, we all know that Power Move Pro Wrestling for wrestling fans on the PlayStation 1 was the first full 3D wrestling game with actual psychology of breaking down body parts and getting your special and getting the win. After that, more mainstream, major company wise, you had WWF Warzone.
So Warzone I got so many good memories of, because I know you and we were at iTech together when that game came out. Yes. So I think you had it on the PlayStation. I think I had it on the PlayStation. I think there was someone in our little group had it on the N64 as well. And how different that game was compared to anything else on the market. Because it felt and looked like a wrestling game. It looked like a wrestling ring. And there was options there was like hardcore match was in there.
Tornado Tag.
Tornado Tag was in there.
It was a big thing.
4 guys at once.
And the bleeding system, people used to get cut on the backs. You don't even get that in SmackDown now. People cut on the arms, on the back, on the leg.
And the fight for who goes through the table, in the table that didn't always appear.
No, and it was just there, and if someone fell over next to it close enough, it would go through with a top drop toe hold.
Yeah, everyone was trying to always get like the belly to back suplex in there, or something like the rock bottom was like just you had to kind of get the alignment right, let alone anything else. And that was half the battle was just trying to get it right.
It was hard enough trying to do that with a standing opponent that wasn't doing anything, let alone an active competitor actually trying to beat your brains out.
Because in that game also you had Vince McMahon was the commentator with Jim Ross.
I'm not quite sure.
It was. I have it over here. I was playing it just the other day.
I'll check you.
Yeah, just
check the big brain on you.
Check the big brain on Brad. And 64 copy.
I've just got to say as well, if we're talking about commentary in wrestling games, one of my favourite one, I'm pretty sure it was Giant Graham. I have no clue who was actually on the commentary. All I remember is the ridiculous, over the top.
Yes. I thought that game was so good. I mean, on a completely unrelated but highly related note, the Sega Saturn archive of games has been uploaded by Sega for free to archive.org of its entire Sega Saturn archive. So on there was a wrestling game, which was the precursor to Giant Graham, which was All Japan Pro Wrestling featuring Virtual Fighter. So I was playing that the other day, and it had like the old.
What was you playing this on?
I got a PC emulator. But it's the Sega Saturn games. They run on my PC.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the SSFA emulator. You can play ROMs, or you can actually play the original Sega Saturn discs. So yeah, Sega have uploaded all its Sega Saturn archive for free to the internet, to the archive database, which is pretty awesome. So, hence the reason I went on a bit of a downloading spree, and came across All Japan Pro Wrestling. So I got to give that a bit of a play the other day. That was pretty cool. So in there you've got Jeffrey, Kage, Kage, and Wolf from Virtual Fighter in there, along with the New Japan roster. And it kind of has this combat system. It was an arcade game where you had essentially it's like a scoop slam, grab, and attack. And so if you grab a guy, it kind of works a bit like rock paper scissors. One move will beat the other. So it's kind of a fast-paced action fest. And the depth of the move system really it's remarkable for the time. And then you had the sequel to that, which again was Giant Graham and Giant Graham 2000, which is what you just mentioned with the DDTs, suplex.
And the first game as well, where they had kind of a showcase mode.
Yeah, so either you recreated a classic match with the moves that at the time. So you had to actually recreate the move yourself. What really happened, of course.
Of course. Swinging back the other way, when we're not talking WWE games for the main era for 3D wrestling games, you had WCW, who actually started a little bit earlier with WCW versus the World on the PlayStation.
That was probably a big main step era game. And in terms of the roster, there was 5 or 6 different rosters in the game itself. I wasn't actually sure whether the promotions were real, because you didn't know, because I didn't recognize half these guys. I didn't recognize more than half. But
I think a lot of them were. It's kind of like Fire Pro Wrestling.
Yeah,
not them, but it is.
It's close enough. Wink, wink.
Yeah, like Bulk Bogan. I wonder who that could be with his red and yellow outfits and big mustache.
So on the WCW roster, I can remember there was like Sting and Flair and Benoit, Eddie. I think Malenko was in there. Obviously Hogan was the main star. Sting, Rick and Scott Steiner. I think that was the WCW roster.
Oh, Scott Norton.
Yeah, Scott Norton, the guy who no one really ever cared about.
No, but it was big in Japan. So
he was very big in Japan. Yeah. And they had like on the right hand side, had some All Japan and New Japan guys. There was like Masachiro Chono on there. There was there was the Pegasus Kid, which of course was Benoit. Again,
who could that be?
And a whole raft of other guys who generally no one ever really played as. But no, that was good because it was the first game of the AKI generation, wasn't it? Of the who went on to make WCW NWO Revenge and No Mercy and all the legendary ones, as it were. That was
the Japanese versions of Virtual Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, that was the first kind of prototype of that system. It's extremely playable even now. The speed is good.
Yeah. And if you have the opportunity to try some of the N64 versions, which always look neater and tidier, and play them on an emulator, you just get that little boost of speed.
Yeah.
Just to give you that 2018 feel. It's a little bit slow for the 1999.
Yeah, because we're talking like PlayStation systems that were still struggling to run games, as it were. But now you can run them at full speed on a PC, perhaps at the speed they were originally intended. Because bear in mind, if you're a UK fan, of course, all of our games were slowed down by 17%, due to the fact that we got PAL here, and the games are all had windows and borders and stuff. So all of our games actually used to run slower than their NTSC and Japan counterparts, which was frustrating as hell. Especially when you've played a full speed game. So if you are a wrestling fan, make sure you run it on an emulator already. You try and get your console fixed to run at 60 Hz. But so what other 3D wrestling games kind of hit that time? There was the Attitude, which is what followed up from Warzone, wasn't it?
Which was like The only letdown with Attitude over Warzone was there was a reduction in moves per character.
Yeah, it was.
But there was so many more characters, and the creator wrestler option on Attitude was just so much better.
Yeah, because I can remember, again, on Warzone here, you press any two directions in a button and you did a move, whether it be a DDT or a suplex or whatever. So you felt like you were never, if you only just come into the game, you kind of knew what you could do just by, if you're a Mortal Kombat fan for sure, two directions and a button. But on Attitude, it was just like, it was just forward and a button for a suplex, hip toss, and a choke, which is what you always end up finding yourself doing. And then you might have 4 or 5 moves that were individual to the character, but trying to work out what those were, sometimes you had the most tedious of matches before they even happened.
And then there was a shift in who was producing the games. AKI took the WWE license.
That's right, yeah.
And that gave us WWF WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, 2 of the finest professional wrestling games by today's standards.
Still today. Hey, the PC version still has mods coming out for No Mercy.
God, they do, and they are spectacular. And WCW, they got
EA?
a THQ producer as well, didn't they? But it was a completely different system. They got WCW Nitro and Thunder.
That's right, yeah.
Absolutely every character had all of the exact same moves, all based on a sequence of button pushes and one finisher.
Yeah, you pressed like 3 buttons in a row and it didn't move.
You had to do it before the other guy did.
Yeah, it was weird. I seem to remember, like, you could, to make the game run faster, you could turn off all the background stuff. You could turn off the crowd, and you could turn off the ring graphics, so the game then runs smoother to play, which is what everyone did. Because
that's right. There was the turbo ring. That's what it was.
That's the turbo ring. You know this.
It'd wipe out everything except for like the ropes and a box to stand on.
Pretty much, just a box.
Yeah, it played very quick. It was a very impressive looking game. I thought the character models looked better than they did in WrestleMania and WCW Revenge, character model wise, but the gameplay was so flawed.
Yeah.
I mean, it boasted 64 characters, if I remember correctly, and there was a couple of silly ones in there. And then they released Thunder, which is the exact same gameplay, changed a few graphics up a little bit.
Yeah, it was blue as opposed to being the red Nitro. And it threw the entire dev team in there as playable characters.
Yeah, they had a roster of 128 characters to play. And it's like, we'll have every wrestler. And then we'll have the refs. Then we'll have the production crew of the game. And then we'll have silly options like
the kangaroo,
a wrestling toaster or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, it was just silly.
Just a couple of hands and some eyes.
Yeah, it got to that point, it gets silly. Didn't WF do that with some games as well? It started throwing all your daft characters in there as well.
They threw some ridiculous things in there, but never like Invisible Man with a couple of hands. Not that I remember anyway.
No, fair enough.
Fred Durst.
Yeah. So what came after that, I guess?
Well, it was the rise of SmackDown.
Well, no, you had the ECW kind of license pop up around that time, didn't you? Cause,
that's right, yeah. After...
all the promotions kind of moved companies, didn't it? So
yeah, it was Accolade. Was it Accolade that did...
Acclaim.
Acclaim?
Yeah.
That was right, Acclaim. That's okay.
Yeah, Acclaim had the WF license.
Warzone and Attitude, and then they did ECW Hardcore Revolution and Anarchy Rules.
Yeah.
And
then went on to do Legends of Wrestling.
The problem with those two games were
it was Attitude with less.
Yeah, and we'd all moved on.
Yeah.
We'd moved on to a better control system than that, and it was literally the past 2 games with lesser known characters.
Yeah, it was like that. I mean, occasionally, I've got both of them on the Dreamcast and PlayStation. When I've dipped into, I'm going to have a wrestling game day, and I'll play Anarchy Rules or I'll play Hardcore Revolution. And it's good to see these celebrity characters because I remember them. But the gameplay wise, it's stiff, it's awkward, it doesn't move very well. I mean, even like Anarchy Rules had like a brimstone match. It started getting silly with fire pits on the floor, and it's like, what are you guys doing? But there was like it's probably the only game actually that had a dumpster match. I've never seen that. I've seen it happen for real, but I've never seen that in a game. And you had the kendo stick stuff was in the Anarchy Rules, but it was just a low res mess. And compared to what had come out from Ukes in the form of SmackDown 2, and what else was coming out, which was EA had picked up the WCW license with Mayhem. It looked far under what the other two guys were putting out.
Yeah, I don't know why EA even bothered. I don't know what the messes that they produced were. The thing is as well, towards late 2000, EA was still making another WCW game.
Yeah, they were.
They actually took the scans of Goldberg and a few other wrestlers preparing for the next game, and obviously with WCW going down the pan, they just scrapped it.
I mean, what do you think that was like then? Because I guess that's where licensing really goes bad. If you've got a product that you've basically bought into, you know, your EA, you've bought into WCW, and then WCW falls. What do you do? Who gets the payoff? How do you
do what every other wrestling game company's ever done? Scrap the license part of it and continue on with the game.
Which is what they did. I guess with the AKI, when they lost all the brands of wrestling, as it were, and they'd all disappeared, they created Def Jam Vendetta.
And what a terrible game that was. That's a lie. It was awesome. It was a bit weird that you had rappers beating the tar out of each other, but hey, it was still a wrestling game, and it played very well.
I think the first one I really enjoyed much better than the second one. The second,
yeah, the first one was it was the wrestling games that we all know.
Yeah,
the second one it was more like Pit Fighter.
Yeah, well, that's right, because it kind of moved from it was rings in some of these underground fight clubs.
That's right, yeah.
But you started getting over the top finishes. I mean, I kind of like the main guy had he had a vertebraker as a finisher, but you jump in the air, spin around first, and then hit the mat. It looks as cool as fuck.
Yeah, it was like a power bomb, and they'll hit the ground, and the legs would pop up, and then turn it into a Boston Crab, and then they'd like swing them out and turn it into a wheelbarrow reverse suplex or something like that.
Yeah, and then Def Jam 2 was, like you said, it just became Pit Fight. It was just a
It was just beat down that one.
Yeah.
Again, not a bad game, but we're sticking with the wrestling games, so
yeah,
Def Jam 2 didn't really meet the criteria of wrestling game.
No, it didn't.
And
I guess that's where the 3D era kind of drifts off a bit, because I guess from beyond that point, you know, you start going into the Xbox comes out, the GameCube comes out, and that, I guess that's perhaps a conversation for another time, where it goes from 32-bit into 64 and
yeah, I think we'll pick up from WWE or WWF SmackDown and how THQ created a different WWE license brand for each system.
Yeah, because I guess you had like the SmackDown one. When SmackDown 1 came along, how different that was. It was fast, it was arcade paced, you had a decent roster going on, and the gameplay felt really fun. It felt... I can remember going into Another World, or Forbidden Planet's precursor, and seeing SmackDown running and going, man, that's fucking cool. Yeah, compared to what we've had at the time.
It was fast, smooth, and the weapons, and you could go different places as well. That was the biggest selling point. You could run around the arenas.
Yeah, you could go to the back, car park a lot, and the boss's table and stuff.
And the kitchen, with that steel table. Always good for a pedigree.
Was it SmackDown 2 where you actually had the breakable announce tables, and you could do like crazy shit through them?
I'm not quite sure.
Because you could find stuff like doing the Jeff Hardy Swanson bomb off the top of Hell in a Cell through the guy on the table and stuff. No, that can't be SmackDown 2, because that's like... No. There could be 3 onwards. 3's PlayStation 2
No,
era.
I think 2 had a Hell in a Cell match in it, but it wasn't a Hell in a Cell. It was a cage match with the roof on it.
That's right, it was just the cage with the 9 grid. That was it, yeah. On the top.
And they called it Hell in a Cell.
Yeah. man, me and Jason were playing the PlayStation 1 wrestling games on the PS3 the other day, and hence we played WWE versus the World, and we played SmackDown 2, and just the speed is just ridiculous. I can remember how revolutionary it was at the time, and this was like the best game ever, but actually, no, it was just a fucking mess. It was just so fast, so random. But the roster was huge.
Yeah, it had a damn good roster. And not to mention as well, with guys leaving or contract disputes and such, they created wrestler A and B and C and D. And in those made up wrestlers, there was also The Big Show and Ken Shamrock and I think Jeff Jarrett and Meat.
That's right, yeah, they had movesets that were kind of, well, he's not in the game now, we'll just push it to the creator wrestler, and you just choose this guy, there he is. I think Rob Van Dam had a moveset like that, it was in there.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was a well thought out game.
Yeah, and ladder matches were in there, wasn't it? There were
yes.
Yes. Was that the first three wrestling to have a ladder match?
Definitely. But that was the hardest. Dudley's, Edge and Christian's fault. They made all that very, very cool again.
Yeah, because was SmackDown the first game to actually have ladder matches?
It may have been. I think the Attitude and such had ladders in, but you could just hit people.
Yeah,
with them.
They were just weapons, weren't they? The generic swing and stuff. Because, like you said, it's when the wrestlers started getting inventive. You know, like hard as the Dudleys, just doing crazy shit off ladders, and I guess gamers wanted to do that as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, if the WWE guys could do it, you wanted to do it in the game.
Yeah, and I guess you've kind of seen that evolve through the SmackDown series. As wrestlers started doing stuff, that kind of mechanic was added. Like I'm thinking now, like Shelton Benjamin using the ladder as teeter, and that you could run up it and dive off it. And that was added in as it came along.
That's right.
But
weapon finishers and being able to bridge the barricade and the ring apron.
Yeah,
that's a more recent one.
But I guess the 32-bit era is actually when wrestling games started looking like wrestling. And it was much needed. I think when you went from the 2D era of the 16-bit to 32-bit, it was wrestling games started looking like how they should do. Their presentation, the rings, the ring entrance way, licensed music with it's on CD, made a big impact on that. I mean, that's the one thing about say Attitude and Warzone stood out. That you had wrestler entrances, and I guess SmackDown 2 had that as their entrance. Actually, was the video of their entrance.
And then walking down the middle of the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, you remember. You know what it was like.
I have no idea. I'm not old enough for that.
But was there any like New Japan stuff, Old Japan 3D games that came out around that time besides that?
See, that's the thing. I mean, we're only really seeing what Japan had now because of emulators. At that time, it was... I mean, you had to be pretty clued up to know that you needed a foreign console or converter, and then you had to be able to get the games because there wasn't the internet then that there is now.
No, you couldn't go to like Amazon or go to Play Asia or whatever and I'll just order it. You know, you had to actually find a retailer over there who actually was willing to send it.
Yeah, you had to find out. Well, for us, it would have been another world.
Yeah,
and the imported games were so expensive.
Yeah, I know.
So expensive.
I spent £89 on like X-Men vs Street Fighter.
Yeah, as I've mentioned before, Capcom versus SNK. I paid a small, tiny fortune for that. But I was just blown away that SNK, Capcom, same game.
Well,
wow.
Yeah, it was like the Marvel crossover for the game in the first time. So good.
Yeah.
So.
And then, like I said, Giant Grammar as well. When I got that for the Dreamcast.
Oh, that was such a good game. It really was.
It was. It took a little getting used to, but once you was in, you was in. But then again, I found that about WrestleMania 2000 as well.
Yeah, WrestleMania 2000 was a game where It's pick up and play, but there was a technical depth to it. I think the one difference is the fact that you could pick a wrestler up and you could cancel pins. You were pinning the guy and you could go, no, we're going to carry on. That was huge. I think that's perhaps when wrestling games started acknowledging that fans wanted to mark out and play smart matches, as opposed to being it's a pin, it's over.
Yeah, or just be a little bit more cruel and malicious.
Yeah.
Like, he's beat, I've got him pinned, 1, 2, but I'm not done yet.
Pick him up, slap another finisher on him.
And it always amazed me as well that me and my friends and yourself, we could come up with new things to do to an opponent.
Yeah, new matches that weren't in the game.
I remember one of the last things I remember coming up with and having this brainstorm, let's do this, everybody. We'd go into a 2-on-1 or a tornado tag match, and we'd hook an opponent in a tree of woe in the corner and set the ladder up in front of them. And then me and my partner would run in from opposite corners into that corner and go with baseball slides. And what would actually happen is one of you would hit the ladder, the other one would hit the opponent, but it'd have the effect of the ladder being drop kicked into their face and upside down in the corner. It would look awesome.
It did.
And it's one of the things you pull it off and you both high five it in real life. You're like, yeah, look what we did. Yeah, look at that guy, bust open, ladder in his face.
Well, that's at No Mercy, of course. If you were one of the fortunate ones like you and I did, we had the version that had blood in it.
Oh,
that they recalled, and then republished it without the blood, because it had the game-breaking bug where if you won the 100-man Royal Rumble to unlock Andre the Giant, it would crash the game save and restart it again. So you just never did that. It's okay. I want blood in this game. It's fine.
Yeah. And that's fine as well, because with the emulators nowadays, you can just save state.
Yeah.
Oh no, you crashed. Okay, just load.
Yeah, it's fine. But you remember those days? Hey, the worst, I can't find my No Mercy copy. It's around the house somewhere. Can I find it? No. I've still got the original case, man. My case for it's still in good condition as well. So, and like I said,
and that's difficult. If anybody's got any Nintendo systems from the NES all the way up to the N64, your boxes are cardboard.
Yeah, they were. They were just cardboard with a bizarre cardboard inlet with like these two little folds on the inside to hold the game in, and they would just deteriorate, just sat on your shelf.
Yeah, if you like, people are just chewing them while you're out.
Yeah, fine. Not that I had anyone ever come around and eat my cases, but I'm aware of what you mean. Though they just deteriorated too quick, and that the hinges, when you opened them many times, you'd find yourself having to just keep your games away from your case, just so you didn't deteriorate the case any more than it already was.
Or you'd go and collect your game off the shelf, pick it up, and it turns out the game is still on the shelf, and you've just got an empty box in your hands. How did this happen?
I've all done that. Yeah, my No Mercy is still sitting around somewhere. I think it's in that cupboard, but can I find it? No. But then again, I've got an emulator and I can run it at full speed, so why would I play the N64 version?
Because you can.
Because I can, yeah, because I can. And the amount of guys I made in that game was crazy. I mean, that was an important part. You hit on that earlier. Custom characters. I mean, the fact that you could create your own guys from Warzone onwards, really, right? So, in Warzone, you could make guys that kind of looked like the guys that who weren't in WF at the time.
Yeah, and they also had set moves lists.
That was
so you just kind of based your character on the fact it had a finisher. It's like there was a character with a sharpshooter finisher. It's like, well, that's going to be Bret Hart or Sting.
Yeah. But then when with Attitude came along, you could actually customize the moveset and choose the finisher, wasn't it?
That's right, yes. That played just lovely as well.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah, it plays like a dog now.
And a bad one.
Yeah.
That's a bad dog. Don't do that no more.
But then if you look at, say, No Mercy, we say the AKI titles, really, so WrestleMania 2000, All Japan games at the time. If you change the costume in-game, it would change the intro as well, because, of course, it used the in-game assets for its intro. So you effectively could recreate their new up-to-date attire of the guys you've got, and it would reflect in that in the intro, and it would look cool as fuck.
Just as a side note as well, have you played Virtual Pro Wrestling 2 on the N64?
It's not a game I've got, so no, but it's good.
You want to, because you know how the other AKI titles have all these different brands in?
Yeah.
This game actually has all of the proper brands in.
Oh, really?
It's got WCW, New Japan, All Japan, FMW, Michinoku Pro, Rings, Pancreas, Pride, Battle Arts, all properly in there.
Wow. I mean, that could have been cheap either for licensing wise.
Oh no. I mean, to get all the Japanese ones in there, that was some good effort. But then to throw in WCW as well.
Yeah. I think I might have to go and have a look on the old emulator later.
That's providing you can find it.
Well, yeah, because they've all gone down, of course, and it was a Nintendo one, and they're the ones who've slapped everyone with the
Thank you, Nintendo. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't like your products anyway, and now you absolutely suck.
Man.
Going into business for yourselves. God, you're such a work.
There's Nintendo, it's trickle down games and all there. We'll do a virtual store where you can download NES games at £10 each. Fuck yeah! I've got this game at 7 times already. I'm not going to pay again.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable the price and the pay for it, the charge. Sorry, I mean it's. I'm not the biggest fan of the Neo Geo games coming on to the Xbox One, and you're having to pay about £6.89 or something like that per title. But when you consider it used to be like £300 per game for the Neo Geo original.
And Neo Geo was one of them consoles I always wanted to get because I knew how cool it was to own one and have one. But I always knew that the reason I didn't get one is the fact the games cost £300 each. But then again,
and that was for a rubbish game as well.
I also know that actually contained the entire arcade board in that cartridge, and that's why it was so expensive.
Just ridiculous, but it played so well.
Yeah, I say like King of Fighters and so on, and Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting. That everyone it was arcade perfect. It was beautiful. But then,
exactly, because it wasn't arcade perfect. It was the arcade.
Yeah, I like the Saturn and PlayStation versions, but never quite there.
Do you see how sport you people are nowadays?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. But the arcade games are just. Is there anything new even coming to arcades these days? I don't know.
Does anybody know? Does anyone even go to the arcade anymore?
Well, I went to the arcade like when I went to Felix though with Sylvia's dad, and it was weird to see new arcade machines. There was like a Walking Dead arcade machine there. That kind of had you as with a crossbow to firing like a crossbow light gun. That was cool. But I didn't see any graphically. It looked like a Dreamcast game.
Yeah, there's a nice place in town as well. Getting a little bit regional there for you. Nottingham's Corner House. They've got an arcade with their Skegness ticket system.
Oh yeah.
My kids love going in there, so I take them there. It's one of the best £25 you can spend. And they're in there for a few hours, and then they save the tickets and buy some sweets at the end. Yeah,
pretty much. It's like you get your tickets and then you trade them in for things that cost far less than you've paid. But hey, it's part of the fun.
Yeah, but you know, they sit there, they're playing some video games, they play some bowling. They shoot things that aren't really there with things, throw balls at things, get some tickets, buy some ridiculously hot sweets, can't eat them, spit them out.
I was say, have you ever actually seen an arcade wrestling game at the arcade?
The only time I've ever seen an arcade wrestling game was when I was down at Skegness. I think I was about 14, and it was on free play, and it was WWF WrestleFest.
What a game that was.
And it was epic. The great thing was as well, because it was being on free play, you could just keep pressing the button where you'd put coins in, and your energy bar would just refill again.
Hey, there is a wrestling game we've missed out. There is one. On the Dreamcast, you had WWF Royal Rumble.
Oh my god, I loved that.
which actually was in terms of its timeline, it kind of came out between SmackDown and SmackDown 2, and effectively it was SmackDown on the Dreamcast, but it was just an arcade game.
It was very arcadey. I think you had singles matches, possibly tag team, and then there was just Survival Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a regular Royal Rumble as well. Last at 30.
Yeah, it was
and
just.
I still to this day remember getting 109 eliminations with Matt Hardy.
Wow.
I worked my ass off for that 109.
Actually, I might actually play that tonight. I'm just randomly off the cuff. Might actually put on Royal Rumble because I've still got my copy over there. Yeah, it was. There was singles. There was tag mode. I think in the tag mode you chose, and I think the roster was quite small actually. I think the roster was only about 15 guys. I think even that's been generous. And then you press because I think at the arcade it was just 3 buttons. I think it was like run, attack, and grapple. You press them all together. You hit your finisher, or you press 2 of them, and your tag team partner would run in and do a double team with you.
Oh no, there was 4 buttons. There was the run, attack, grapple, and then there was the whip button.
Yeah, that was separate, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So you stagger him into the ropes. So you grab him from behind, press the button with a direction, then stagger backwards into the rope. And you could push him over. Or
Yeah, because when you press 2 buttons together, your tag team partner would come in and slap a finisher, and then just dive back out again, or would do like a suplex or tag team grapple in the corner. I think Taz was in there. I think Jericho was there.
Taz was definitely in there. Jericho, the Hardys, Edge and Christian.
Stone Cold
was
was
a WWE game. Definitely Kane, Undertaker, and Triple H.
Yeah.
Austin would have been The Rock.
Ross. I think Big Show, maybe.
I think the Big Show was in there.
Because I can remember the Royal Rumble itself, you'd end up fighting the same guys would come over and over again. Rikishi was in there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because at the time he was
over.
hot shit. Yeah.
So if Rikishi was in there, was like Brian Christopher and Scotty 2 Hotty there as well?
Don't think they were. Cause you've got to bear in mind it would have been the top guys.
Yeah.
I know it sounds weird when you say the Hardys and Edge and Christian, but what you do need to remember is at that time they were at the very top of the game. Actually, I've just pulled up the roster. It's surprising, actually. Al Snow was in there. Big Show, Jericho, D'Lo Brown, Edge, Godfather, both Hardys, Kurt Angle, Kane, Mankind, Rikishi. Actually, Christian wasn't in there. Road Dogg, but yet no Billy Gunn. The Rock, Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon, X-Pac, Taker, Triple H, Taz.
Right. Yeah, because what would happen is you'd play the Royal Rumble mode and the same guys would come out 2, maybe 3 times.
That's right. Vince and Shane were actually unlockable characters.
Yeah. It was a decent game, actually. Like I say, basically, it was SmackDown for the Dreamcast. So at the time, visually, it looked far better than the PlayStation SmackDown then. It came out before SmackDown 2 did, so...
Yeah. It was a grand total of 21 wrestlers, including the 2 unlockables.
Not quite the 30 needed for a Royal Rumble, but hey.
Yeah,
wasn't Vince like the last guy to come out in the Royal Rumble mode? Is that what it was? When you unlocked him? Wasn't he like the last guy to come out?
I can't remember, to be honest.
Because I guess I was talking about the 32-bit era. I guess the Dreamcast sits at a bit of a weird point in that, because it wasn't the success next generation, but it was at the end of the 32-bit, 64-bit era. Kind of overlapped.
Well, it was Dreamcast, so
yeah,
it wasn't 64. It was 1 to 8, weren't it?
Yeah, it was 1 to 8. Yeah, so it kind of.
I think we're starting to creep out of our realm.
It sits in the 3D realm that was the Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation 2 era, but it also kind of straddles into the 32-bit era because it kind of sits as a game console, that 4-year run that it had, floating over both. It was next gen while also being at that time being the 32-bit, 64-bit. So was it 5th generation, 6th generation?
Can't remember.
I don't remember.
The one thing I do know for a fact, the Dreamcast was the console of the future.
Yeah, it was. So much shit.
It was so far ahead of itself. It was what consoles are today, back in 1998.
Yeah.
full internet, video playing abilities, music, just very good graphics with excellent sound. The only thing they didn't do at the time was the DVDs.
Yeah, but then DVDs were made by Sony at the time. I can when I used to work at Time Computers, we had DVD drives that came in for the PC, and they were £1,300.
Dear God.
And we're talking like a 4-speed. Fucking hell! I can remember seeing that drive, and it was, the price it was $12.99, and going, I remember that shit at retail. So the fact that I even came to a console, that's the difference when the PlayStation 2 came out, of how important that was, being at a $3.99 price point that it was. How important that was. It was £600 cheaper than a DVD player.
I know they made such a loss on making the PlayStation 2, but they knew they'd make it with the games.
Yeah,
and they did.
Man, so that's the conversation for the next time. So I guess that's going to be SmackDown. Just bring it onwards from there, and WWE Raw, Raw.
Oh, and don't forget WrestleMania on the GameCube.
Yeah, and Day of Reckoning stuff. So that's to come next. So we're going to bow out now. This was Wrestle DX Alpha. We hope you've enjoyed our ride today through what was the flashback of the pay-per-views that have been this week. Our gaming conversation and time that we lived and came through that era, and our thoughts on what's coming up next. So until next time, that's Kev, I'm Kristian, and we're bowing out of here. We'll catch you next time.
Take care.